Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. Welcome to another plugin knowledge session. In this session, we're going to continue on our little trek with iZotope Ozone 8. We're going to look at the Imager module. So this module is basically a stereo widening tool or enhancing tool. You can widen. You can also reduce the width if you want to make something more mono. The big difference with the iZotope product over some of the other ones is that this is multi-band, which means that you can do different sorts of width and imaging for different ranges of frequencies, similar to a multiband compressor, but in regards to imaging itself. So let's stop talking about it and get straight into it. All right, so I've got Ozone 8 open in Cubase again, and I've got it placed onto a full song at the moment just for ease of doing all these different bands. You can obviously use this on instrumentation and that sort of stuff, but it's more general to use this as a mastering plugin, so that's what I'm going to focus on here. Now I've got it open in the main full version of Ozone 8 because I have the advanced version. I could have opened this individually as a separate plugin, but I thought I'll just show it in this window so it's consistent with some of the other videos. Obviously, we've already covered a lot of the other components, so if you haven't watched those videos, go and check out the overview and all that sort of stuff, so, as I'm not going to cover all of the details around the rest of Ozone in this video. All right, so as with all the other modules here, we've got some presets that we can load for this individual module. We can solo it, we can bypass the module, and we can also move it around in the order if we had different modules. Now, as you can see from the window here, this is the main difference with Ozone's Imager as opposed to a lot of others, is that we actually have 4 bands. Now, we can remove bands as we can with the multiband compressor or anything else like that, or we can bring them back in. Okay, so with our bands here, as I said, we can add, we can remove bands. We have a learn function here. When we play the music, we can get this to learn and make some decisions on where it thinks the band should be split up. We can bypass each band, or we can solo each band, which we'll go through as well. We have a couple of different views here, which we'll flick onto to see what they do, but obviously this is the main view that we usually look at. And we have some other features down here and another little display monitoring tool. So this monitoring tool here is our vector scope, as it's written here. So it's going to show our stereo width of the audio as it plays, and we can show it in different formats. And we even have a correlation meter here on the side as well. And our main controls are over here for each of the bands. And as you can see, starts off at 0, and we can go up into the positive. So if we go into the positive, we are making this band wider. If we go into the negative, we are making it narrower, so we're making it more mono. And we can do that for each of the bands. We also have this Stereoize effect here that we can turn on. It's off by default, but we can turn it on. So if we have a song or a track that is very narrow or mono even, we can turn this on and add some stereo effect to it. It is supposed to be mono compatible. So, but obviously it depends on how extreme you want to go with these settings to what effect that is going to have. So if we just play the song right now, I'll just bypass this so it's not doing anything. This is what we have at the moment. if we turn it on, nothing is affected there. So you can obviously see we've got a waveform here, and you can see our vector scope here showing our stereo width. There's fully left, fully right. You can flicker over to the polar view, or this view here if you prefer. We have a little dot down the bottom which is sort of showing the average of where at that time the stereo field is sitting, whether it's sitting more right. Obviously here it's sitting in the center. You can see it moves a little bit. And our correlation here, 0, -1 and +1. With any correlation meter, we want to be between 0 and +1, which indicates that our song has good phase relationships. And anything that starts to go into the minus is going to potentially mean that you're going to have some phasing issues. And when you go into mono or on various sources that represent mono, you may have some issues with your audio. So we want to try and be up here with majority of the time. Now, this control here as well, we've got this bands which we can link. So we can link all the bands together so that every change we do is done the same. Or we can obviously unlink it and then adjust each one independently. So if we focus on one band just for the moment, and I'm going to pick the mid here. So I'm just going to solo it just so it's obvious you can hear it. You can hear how stereo it goes there, how wide it goes. If I bypass it, that's back to where it was. And we can even go the other way and make it very mono. And you can see from the graph here how mono that is. It's a dead straight line now. See how spread out wide it is. More normal. So you can see the control we have over each of the bands. And you might want to target the low end here. So one common trick in mastering is if you've got a lot of bass information that's out wide, you might want to mono it a bit. But just for that low end there. So you might not want to go 100% mono, but you might want to bring it in a little bit so it's not so spread out. So if you put it back to normal, you can hear there's a little bit of bass information below this 140 that's in the left and right, and you might want to mono that a bit. Try and keep your bass mainly in the center. So one trick I like to do, one technique I like to do is I like to do exactly this. When I'm doing mastering, I might narrow the bass band here. I may leave the mids here, but I might start widening some of the top end. And that can really start to open the mix up. seems subtle, but you can hear it sort of expand. It's almost like the mix just opens up a little bit, gets a little bit more room in it, a little bit more space, and just feels a little bit more alive as it spreads out. So this is a common technique that I will use in my mastering sessions. Now, some of the other controls, the graph here, we can see the actual width of the music here. So you can see the bass is quite narrow down here. So you can see where your main points of spread are. So if I adjusted that, it should widen out a bit. See how narrow that got there when I did that. So depending on what type of view you want to look at, and look at this other view. So this is our correlation trace. So this is showing this information here. So if we started widening things too much, you can see it's starting to get to the red there. It's still not in the red, so in theory it's still good from a correlation point of view. Probably doesn't sound the best, but it is okay. So as I said, the other thing you can do is you've got this learn button here. So if you want to see what the actual program itself suggests as your crossover points for each of the bands, basically click on the learn, play the music. Once the button goes gray, then that means that this is where it thinks the best places are for each of the frequency ranges. So you can solo them to hear what it's picking up. So that's what it suggests there. So the great thing about this plugin, obviously, is that you're not dictated by, if you want to get some extra stereo width into your song, you're not dictated by doing it across the entire song for all frequency ranges. You can still keep your bass elements very mono, very straight down the middle, and widen out the top end a bit just to get the high-pitched shimmer stuff a little bit wider. Gives you room, your mix, your master, some space, sounds more open and natural, but without widening every element in the song. So let's move over to a mono source here, and I'm going to put this on and we'll have a play with the Stereoize and see what we can get out of that. Okay, so I've got a mono acoustic guitar track, but I've placed it on a stereo track itself. And the reason for that is because generally in Cubase, stereo enhancing tools do not work on mono tracks. Cubase just still locks a track into mono. It will not adjust itself to stereo. Tools, TIWs like Pro Tools and that, when you put a stereo-based plugin on a mono track, it automatically converts it to stereo. Cubase won't do that. So if you want to use a stereo tool on a mono track, you need to make sure that you move that mono audio onto a stereo track first and then put your plugin on. Now, it still sounds mono without the plugin, okay? Because here it is. So I've got a stereo track with a mono guitar and it sounds like this. Sounds very mono. Now, if I bring in the plugin, still no difference. You can see it's mono, straight line on the vector scope here. Now, just for the sake of the demonstration here, I've got the bands locked. I'm just going to move them all at once. Okay. And I've move the bands and it's done nothing at all. So what we need to do now is we need to turn on the Stereoize tool, and that will then start to manipulate the sound to make it sound stereo. So I'll leave the bands at 100% at the moment to exaggerate it. Okay, so now we've got stereo. Sounds quite phasey. So now these controls actually do something. So this millisecond timer here that I'm adjusting, as far as I can tell, it just says that it changes the character of the stereo effect. So what I'm assuming that it's doing is it's changing the delay between the left and right signal that it's creating here. It's obviously doing some sort of duplication and putting a little bit of delay on one to the other to get that stereo effect. So depending on where you have it, you can sort of hear it's a little bit more phasey in one part or another, and it may come into play with this setting here. So depending on where you have these settings may give you a different quality. So obviously with this band here, we might decide that, okay, I want to adjust some bands. I don't want to make it all fully stereo. So first off, let's just do a bit of a learn. Okay. Now I might want to widen some top end. We might want to keep the bass quite narrow. Now, for some reason, I actually find that setting quite comfortable. When I go down to 1 millisecond, it feels very uncomfortable to me. I've got headphones on, so it's the effect is exaggerated because I'm wearing headphones. But you need to assume that as well, because a lot of people obviously listen to music with headphones on these days, so you need to be cautious of that. But I'll just do that again. There's just something about that sound. I don't feel comfortable with it. I don't like it. When I go to the default 6 milliseconds, it sounds okay. It just sounds a little bit phasey. You can hear a washy sound to it. There's not bad as well. That phasey sound disappears a bit. To me, there's really crystal clear. Now, the trick with this is what has it done with the correlation and everything else? So let's have a look at that while we're playing it. So if we bypass that, so you can see how mono it is there, and when we turn it on, this is the effect we're now getting with our stereo. And the correlation looks pretty good. It's in the blue, it's up here. Now the ultimate test is actually to put the mono control on and make sure it still sounds good in mono. which it does by this. So there's the stereo. So again, let's just go to the full maximum control here. Now you can see here the correlation. It's going into the red there. We're sitting down here. Probably not the best approach to go for. Now it's still working because the plugin does claim that it will be mono compatible no matter what settings you use. I still wouldn't advise a setting like this, and it doesn't sound great, to be honest. So where we had it before probably sounded quite nice, created a nice stereo effect, seemed to work well for my ears anyway in the headphones. So hopefully it worked well for you as well. And that's pretty much the extent of the plugin. So there you go. There's the Imager module in iZotope Ozone 8. So check it out if you can get access to a demo, or if you already have it, try out the features. Let me know what you think. Let me know how you use it in the comments. If you're watching this video on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel so that you can get notified of all the new videos as they come out. And you can obviously check out some of these links for other videos and free content, etc. So hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.